going to do, obviously in an hour, I can't teach you to sequence completely, but what I can do is give you a workable methodology, kind of cover some of the basic tools that you're going to need to get going. But the best part of this class for most of you is that we're going to throw creativity out the window, and you'll see what I'm talking about here in a second. All right, a little bit about me. I started decorating the house I'm living in the year 2000. It was a static display until 2006. In 2006, we bought, I think it was 4 Lightorama boxes. And then each year we just kept growing and growing and growing. And then in 2015, we had 17 Lightorama boxes. We had 45,000 incandescent and LED lights, and made the decision to jump over to xLights in January of 2016. Literally took me 4 months. It was April before I had completed one sequence, and started sequencing. We had kind of an unusual layout because we had a Whoville house, and people kept asking for the sequences, and I thought, well, maybe there's a little market here. So in 2018, we opened up Showstopper Sequences, and now I'm a full-time sequencer. This is what I do year-round. Typically, in any given year, I will touch or put together about 50 sequences. This year, I'm updating a lot of our older sequences. So already this year, I've touched over 80 sequences, including new ones that we're doing. My go-to, believe it or not, is anything creative. I like making things, creating things. But one little known fact about me is I am a really good cake decorator. It's kind of a weird little hobby. I only do it for family members. The little picture you see there is one that I did for a nephew of mine when he turned 5. But like I said, I only do it for family members. But when I was in college and undergraduate, I thought, well, how can I make some money without really having to work a full-time job? So I taught myself how to decorate cakes and made wedding cakes. And of course, you can always charge a little extra for wedding cakes. So I'm a real good cake decorator. That's a weird little fact about me. All right, today I'm not going to tell you how to set up controllers. I'm not going to tell you how to set up your layout. What we're going to do is we're going to focus all our efforts on the third tab in the upper left-hand corner of xLights, the sequencer tab. I want to talk to you a little bit about how I approach sequencing, because I think it is important for most of you. We both, well, most of us have both sides of the brain, but we all have a tendency to like to use one side over the other. And what I found in this hobby is that we have a lot of right-brainers. That's the analytical, the logical, the people who deal with facts and math and training. A lot of people there on the right side of the brain. The left side of the brain, where unfortunately a lot of the sequencing comes from sometimes, is deals with the creativity, emotions, imagination, arts, intuition. All those things flow from the left brain. And like I said, this hobby really is dominated by right-brainers. Every once in a while, somebody will put out a little post, hey, what's your real job? And man, there's all kinds of STEM careers, engineers, and just really analytical people. I just went and pulled this little picture from one of the forums on Facebook, and it was just a build, but I mean, look at that build. And I see lots and lots of those where people are just so precise in everything they do. I can build a controller, but truthfully, when I get done, it looks like a red, black, green, yellow, blue spaghetti sitting on a PCB. Another thing that always impresses me is just some of the amazing engineering that people come up with for their props and their display. But the problem with being right-brained and doing sequencing is that a lot of people view it as a creative process. I will tell you that, and what I'm going to show you is that sequencing is really a problem-solving process. Okay, so if you have a structure, make it problem-solving instead of creative. Well, what happens is now we're kind of talking your language for those of you that are right-brained. So we're going to approach it from the perspective that sequencing is not a creative process, but sequencing is a problem-solving process. And I will tell you that over time, by approaching it as a problem-solving process, you will nurture the other side of your brain. In other words, it will come along and you will become more creative as a result of that. All right, so what are the benefits of taking this approach? Well, for the right-brainers out there, it's going to reduce the perceived importance of creativity. It's going to give you a structured methodology for sequencing, and it puts the process, like I said, in terms that you can relate to, something that makes sense to you. Now, I'm not saying that anybody in their right brain that's right-brain dominant can't be creative. There's a lot of people that are. I'm blessed in that regards. I can be both analytical and creative. There is but everybody has a preference. Like I said, I'm happiest when I'm creating something. For the left-brainers, people like me, again, it's going to reduce the perceived importance of creativity. But it's going to give you structure. The structure part is more important to me than stepping away from the creativity. And for me, it also helps me cut through what I consider the boring stuff, the stuff that I don't really enjoy that much. But I've got a methodology and I know I'm going a certain direction by doing it that way. All right, so to treat sequencing as problem solving. Well, what are the problems we need to solve? Well, first thing I'm going to tell you is we don't need that one. Okay, we don't need the creative vision. We need to learn xLights. xLights is our tool. You need to prep your work area. Thankfully, we only really have to do that once. You have a song selection problem, a palette selection problem, timings, prop selections from the perspective of when do I use them in the sequence, and effect settings. You know, what effects am I going to use on what props at what time? And then once you get to the end, after you've put your sequence together, you sit there and you watch it and you come back and you go, wouldn't it be cool if I could make it do this? All right, so what that does is it takes the creative vision from the top and moves it to the bottom. The creativity is going to be the last thing that we do. And I will tell you this, even if you never touch the sequence when you get done, people are going to enjoy the heck out of it. All right, the Christmas shows, sequences, they are like pizza. Even the bad ones are pretty good to your audience. People will enjoy your light show, even if you just put up a butterfly effect and just let it sit there. People will ooh and ah over that. Now they might drive away a little quicker because it gets boring after a while, but trust me, you're going to be okay with anything that you do. So we've taken the creative vision and moved it all the way to the bottom. And I will tell you that 9 times out of the 10, when I sit down and start a sequence, I have no idea what it's going to look like when I get done. In other words, there really is no creative vision. Now, every once in a while, I'll have a clear vision. For example, I literally almost dreamt what to do on the Mega Tree when I did "You Make It Feel Like Feel Like Christmas," the Gwen Stefani song. I knew exactly what I wanted to do on the Mega Tree, and I was able to sequence that song literally in 2 days because I had a clear vision. But most of the time, nope. I don't know what it's going to look like when I get done. So the creativity part is really, really not that important. And for many of you, that takes a lot of pressure off. All right, so let's talk about learning xLights. You will never learn all of xLights. There's just no way. I feel like, I have a handle on the things that I need to do what I want to do. But there is so much to xLights, and they're constantly adding, constantly tweaking, constantly improving. 13 revisions so far this year. So I will tell you that learning xLights is an ongoing process. Ways to do it? Well, of course, you can attend classes like this one. There's lots of great videos, and more people are getting them out there. There are the Zoom Room gems. There are the xLight nuggets. There are recordings of the virtual summits. There's people like PPD that put out videos showing you how to do things. One of the things that's often overlooked, and I'm going to point it out there to you, because even though there's some parts that have not been updated very recently, the xLights manual, and that's the link to it right there. If you just go to xlights.org, it's a link right off the main page, and go there and look at the effects. Anytime I have a question, I'm curious about, what something will do, I'm looking to make it do something, I'll use the manual. And, it's really a good effort there and a good reference tool. Another thing that you can do, and it's so important, is look at sequencing as playing. Because that's what I'll do. I'll sit there and I'll say, well, let me try this, let me try this. And sometimes you happenstance, you come across something and you go, man, that's fantastic. And other times I'll sit there and I'll work 2 hours trying to do something, and I just have to move on because I can't make it do exactly what I want. And usually it's not a failing of xLights. If you have any familiarity with xLights, there's probably 4 or 5 different ways to do the same thing. And it's usually a failing on my part. I don't have the expertise yet when I fail at trying to do something, because, man, it seems like there's nothing that you can't do with the program. Okay, so let's talk about prepping your work area. I think it's particularly important when you first start out to always to eliminate as much clutter as you can. The windows and dialogues are there. You can pop them in and out. But what eliminating clutter does is it's going to reduce visual interferences. Let me show you what I like to do. I'll have to do some screen changing here. And make sure I am sharing this with you. Got to get over to the right directory. All right. I'm just going to create a real quick, I'm just going to go in, tell it a new sequence. I'm going to create an animation sequence. I usually sequence at 40 frames per second, and I'm going to do that. Now, if you look at all the windows that are up here, that is, in my mind, a lot of clutter. So there's a lot of these that I can really get rid of. I can always call them up if I need them later. But let me show you what I like to do, and you'll see how it's a little more uncluttered. Okay, I'm going to eliminate value curves. I'm going to eliminate the colors. I'm going to eliminate the search panel, display elements, the effect assist. Don't need that. Okay, these are the core dialogues, the core windows that I use when sequencing. Okay, if you look here, I've got the colors because I'm going to change colors from time to time. I've got model preview. I've got the house preview. I've got layer blending. I've got layer settings. And what I like to do is I put my effect settings over here on the right-hand side. Now, the way that you do that Let me dock this. All right, if you want to manipulate these things, the way that you do it, you'll hold down the control key. If you hold down the control key, you can bring any of those windows, those dialogues out and keep them from docking. Okay, if you don't hold down the control key, you see where it's shaded, it's going to try to dock there. Well, I take my effects settings and I bring it all the way over to the right, and you'll see how it shades a big area. All right, so I've got my effect settings all the way over to the right. And the reason why I do that is because some of the effect dialogues, like if you get over to, say, the water dialogue, it'll fill up most of that area on the right-hand side because there are so many parameters, so many options that you have. So anyway, that kind of gives me my work area. It's very, very clean, has all the major ones that I need. But if I ever need to get to any of the others, I just go to the view, go to the windows, and you see right there, I can select whichever ones I need. I can do the display elements, I can do the effect assist, search effects, whatever I need, it's right there. All right, so once you get your screen set up the way you want, what I want you to do is go over to perspectives and save the current. And it'll say, hey, do you want to save it as default? You could also save it under a different name, but I will tell it yes in this instance. Now, the next time I come into xLights, it's going to bring up the windows, these dialogues exactly like this because I just saved it. All right, now another thing that you'll want to do when you're setting up your work area, let me go over here and let's go to preferences. Now, there's not a lot here that you have to change. Couple of things that you can do. I like to do my backup when I start. I give it my backups a year. You can designate exactly where your alternative backup is. I put mine on a removable drive, my alternative backup. The other backup directory, you can either specify it or use the show folder. I use the show folder for the primary, and then, like I said, a removable drive for the alternate backup. On the view, a couple of things that I do. Now, you can adjust your tool icon size. I always put the effect assist off so it's not popping in and out because it will come on when it can be used with an effect. I just generally don't use it because I'm not a big morph person, and I only selectively use the sketch effect. And so as a result, I just leave it off. Next tab, effects grid. Be aware here, one that I find is really helpful is snapping to the timing marks. Reason why I think that's very helpful is because I always do a timing mark called structure. And what that structure does is it when I first go through, I'll listen to the music and I will manually put in timing marks where I think I'm going to make changes. I don't always follow that. Sometimes I change it on the fly, but you can always just slide those timing marks back and forth. But when I create effects, I want them to snap to those timing marks so that as I do transition, everything ends and starts together. All the effects end and start together. The other thing that I don't do is see where it says small waveform? Your waveform is this area right here above the sequencing grid. And I want that to be big because I'll use the waveform to place timing marks and things like that. So I want it to be as big as possible. Another one that I always check is you'll see here that display transition marks. I like to click that simply because on the front end, you'll see the length of the transition as a green bar above the effect. The transition out will be a red bar on the tail end of the effect. So I always display that. Sequences, I do my render on save. Some people shut that off and just do we'll just render using the render command. That's the little palette up there, which is the sixth icon up at the top. The little looks like a painter's palette. That's the render. I don't use the low definition render. The default view for new sequences, that's kind of an advanced feature. I say it's advanced because what you'll want to do down the road is actually set a view. You'll want to change your master view, and when you do that, you'll want to point to that to what your default is going to be. I enable the render cache. Now I say I enable it, but I will tell you sometimes when I'm working on like a large drive-through or something like that, having the render cache on will actually make the program crash. So if I'm working on a complicated layout, I will shut the render cache off. It just makes the program work better when you're dealing with, 500,000 pixels and a mile-long display. Again, I just use the show folder for the render cache directory. However, you can specify another place. And what you've got to remember is what happens when the render cache can become quite large over time. So you may want to redirect that to another drive on your computer. This one, next little saying is I think this one is real important, is the autosave. Because I do this full time, nothing's more frustrating than losing work you've already done and having to go back in and recreate it, because it seems like it's never as good, and it's not as much fun to recreate something as it is to create it the first time. So I've got my backup set to every 3 minutes. So in the event that xLight crashes, the most I'm going to lose at one time is about 3 minutes of work. So that's not too bad. Okay, the FSEQ. All right, so to understand what the FSEQ is, basically the FSEQ is the file that is created that tells the lights what to do. In other words, that is the actual file that is sent out to the controllers. And there are several versions. I use FPP, so I use the V2. There are different standards there, but the nice thing about using the V2, it doesn't take quite as much space up as the V1. Now remember, like your render cache, your FSEQ is going to be very big sometimes. So if you don't have a big drive to work with and you want to redirect those to another drive, this is where you would do it on that one there. Output, I usually don't change anything there. Check sequence, you can go in and check sequence. The one that I disable is duplicate nodes in model groups, simply because for me, that's a bit of an irritant, because I don't mind duplicating nodes as long as it doesn't detract from the image on the submodel. In other words, you can drop a pixel or two and no one will ever notice. But if you have a lot of overlap, it becomes unusable, but you'll see that, and I don't need a check for that. Okay, the random effects tab. It is possible to generate random effects. On the effects setting, you'll see over here on the right-hand side where I've got the effects settings, you see that dice there? That will generate random effects. What that means is you can highlight an area and then put random effects in that area. And this tab lets you specify which random effects that you want to use. Some of them you just may not want. For example, you're probably not going to want random DMX effects. You're not going to want random shader effects. Some of those things are very, very specific. So you can kind of go through, select what you want. Colors, this is where you can kind of customize your timing marks. You'll see over there, there's 5 timing marks, but if you have more than 5 timing tracks, it's just going to repeat that color pattern. But you can pick and choose what you like over here. I usually don't mess with it. I've kind of done the default. Now the other tab, couple of things there. when I package my sequences, I exclude presets and I exclude the audio. I do the shaders on the background threads. I let it auto select the video codec, purge the download cache at startup, ignore the vendor model recommendations, and I shut off the tip of the day. Now, if you're just getting started, maybe turning on the tip of the day would be beneficial to you. There are some great suggestions there, but for me, it's usually stuff that I've encountered before. So when you get done, these preferences will stay with you every time you open up a sequence. So we've set the work area and we have set the preferences for you to get started with that. All right, so let me catch up here. I've got these printed out for myself. The nice thing about doing this is really you only have to do it once to get it set up the way you like it. Now, there are some variations. For example, I have 2 monitors. Now, since it's a hassle, using 2 monitors in Zoom, I'm just got everything set on this. But what I will typically do is take my house preview and I will move it over to another monitor. In this instance, though, because of Zoom, I leave it here. But some people have as many. I think Clyde at PPD's got 5, 6 monitors. Well, you can move things around as you like. Like I said, I've just got 2, so I'll take my house preview out and move it out because then I can really see what's going on the display as I'm sequencing. You can also, as I said, if you have a laptop, for example, when it comes to your view and your perspectives, you can save like your laptop view as a new one, and then you can load instead of accepting just the default when you move over to your laptop, things like that. So, all right, so you've got your work environment set. That's the first problem that we solved. Now, the next thing let's talk about, let me get us back over to it. Hang on. We're going to talk about song selections. I know some of you are like me. You listen to Christmas music year round. Lots of sources out there. I've listed some there. I use Amazon simply because I usually point people to a place where they can purchase the song that I'm going to use. But there are lots of available ways to listen. A lot of them will have specific Christmas lists or even stations. Well, they will play. When you decide what song to use, there's some things you're going to look at. I think probably the most important one is your preferences. Reason why, let's face it, you're going to sit there and you might listen to that song 100 to 200 times. Often it's just in 5 or 10 second sections as you are sequencing. So you really need to have something that you like. There's also your audience. You have to be conscious of who your audience is. Some of the songs that are sequenced out there, really aren't appropriate for kids. I've got 1 or 2 that are like that, but people have requested them and people do like them. But you have to be conscious of your audience and also your show. I mean, what's your vision for your show? And the last thing, of course, is your display. Based on what you have in your display, and for example, if you think, man, this would be really cool with video, but you don't have a big matrix, well, maybe it wouldn't be such a good song. So those are some things to do. What I recommend you do is, again, listen to songs on a regular basis, listen to some of the lists, kind of keep an eye out for new releases. Things like that, so that when something comes out, something becomes available, you are able to basically sequence it in a timely manner so it's ready to go for your show. Now, the next thing we're going to talk about is timings. I believe timings are the key to a good sequence. Reason why, they're the hooks you hang your effects on. I will typically do spend 3 to 4 hours on timings. I will spend a couple of hours on the front end, and then as I go through the song and I'm sequencing and I see, well, I need some more timings here, I might add an additional timing track and I'll add it in. One of the ways that you could get automatic, and this will help you a lot starting out, is the Queen Mary Vamp plugins. It's available. There's a download that's available off of the xlights.org website. That's the website there. The releases, it's a download, it's an install where you can install those on yours. Mac's a little bit different. If you look at chapter 3 of the xLights manual, they've got a link there. Dan Culp maintains a link there to the Queen Mary Vamp plugins. There's also some third-party software that you can use. We won't be going into that, but Audacity, free download, will help you do timing marks. You can actually install the Queen Mary Vamp plugins into Audacity. And Moises AI is a program that I use because it will separate things into music in MP3 into separate components, such as voice, drum, guitar, piano, strings, things like that, so that I can come back and put in timing marks by basically trading out the MP3 that's loaded into xLights. So there are some third-party software that you can use on that. Let me switch over now over to xLights. And I'm going to call up a song, new sequence. I will discard those changes. Musical sequence. And I just picked a song, not one that I'm working on right now, but it's one I might do at some point. Again, I use 40 frames per second, and I do a quick start. And this is Oh Santa by Mariah Carey, Ariel Grande, and there's another woman that sings with it, but that's basically it. Now, timing marks. What I will do, I will take this first one, I'm going to right click on it, and I'm going to rename that timing track, and I'm going to call it structure. All right, so what I will do to create the structure, I'll go in. Now I've got my to quiet, so hopefully this won't blow anybody out. I'll go through and I'll listen. Okay, start out with some bells there, so I'm going to start the timing there. All right, lyrics start in here, so I'm going to mark that one. I'm going to put a timing mark there. All right, so what I do when I go through and I do the structure, I'm just listening to it. And again, I'm putting down where I think I might change the sequence based upon either the lyrics or the music or something like that. All right, so now I'm going to go up here. I'm going to right click and I'm going to add a timing track. And I'm going to click on that. And I'm going to come down here. One that I use frequently is the bar and beat tracker beats. I'm going to tell it okay. And usually I've got my beats per bar set at 4. And it will go through and it will analyze it. And now you will see that it has added the beats in itself. So let's listen to the music just a little bit. Okay, if you watch there, and I'll zoom in. You'll notice that the claps that are dominant in that song also coincide with each one of the beats. Every once in a while, you'll find a song that maybe they skip a beat or something like that. And so I'll have to go in and I might add in some manual timing marks. Another thing that people will like to do, I'm going to add another timing mark there. And another one that a lot of people will like to do is bars. I like using the bar and beat tracker, although there's a lot of them there. And again, I've got beats per bar set at 4. All right, and it'll go in and add those in. So now I've got some timing marks. You will see in my sequences, if you've ever looked at one, I will go back in and I will add, special timing marks, flourishes, sometimes beats twos where I'll catch the downbeat or alternate beats, things like that. So you want to add those in because let me give you a real good example of why this is important for you. All right, let's say that we've got arches. And we want, once things start, we're going to put in some arches. Now, what I can do is I can come over and I can take the single strand and I'm grabbing it by left clicking, bringing it down. And now I'm going to stretch it out. Let me count those beats now. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17. All right, so I'm going to come over here where it says cycles. I'm going to put in 17 cycles. I'm going to change the render style to per model default. So each one of those is going to do it. So let's see what we get. I'm going to do a bounce from left on that. I don't know if you can see these models. I'm going to try to make it a little bigger. I know some things don't always translate real well. I've only got 3 arches. I'm going to go ahead and increase the chase size so you can see what it's doing. Oh, I hit the bars and not the beats. If I were to make it with the beats, I know there's 4 beats, so let me reduce that down a little bit. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. There's 4, so let's put that at 32. That's actually 32 beats. Now it should match a little better. Let's watch it. Okay, notice I hit, the way that it's working is that it's hitting double because it's a bounce from left. With an upbeat song like that, that's going to work pretty well. But if I just wanted to hit the claps, I would reduce that down to 16. And you see it's bouncing on the claps now. I would probably double bounce simply because it's an upbeat song. It's really fun to watch. So these timing marks are critical because that's where you put things in. All right, so now let me get back to this other thing here. Change my share back over to. All right, now your palette. One of my pet peeves, and again, this is just me, is that, people will just throw all kinds of colors out there. And it's not bad. Like I said, it's like pizza. Even the bad ones are good. But I think if you don't look at the colors and what the colors communicate and make it coincide with the message of the song, I think you're missing an opportunity. Not that it's bad. It's just you're not doing as much as you could. And so you can go out and you can get color charts. Man, there's some that are really elaborate. But the basic one for Christmas, of course, is red represents the blood shed for Christ on our behalf, the sacrifice. Green is life everlasting, and the white, is the purity of God on earth. So that's where we get red, green, and white for Christmas. That's why we use those colors. Because there is a subtle communication. Of course, there's also some cultural expectations. You have different cultures, the meanings of the colors are completely different than what they are, for example, in the Western civilization, and there could be some country differences. But I recommend you select a palette that complements the message of the song. And I think ultimately your audience subconsciously recognizes that and feels like, well, hey, the display and the effects and everything really go together with the song. I won't spend any more on that because, like I said, if you don't do that, it's not going to cause any problems, really. All right, so let's talk about prop selection. Now, I'm not talking about the props that are within your display itself, but basically, you've got to make a decision, which props do you use? And again, it is completely subjective and there is no wrong answer. It is your personal preference. And a lot of times your music can help determine what you're going to do. For example, if the song drops down and it's very slow and very somber, that's an opportunity to give your audience a break. In other words, don't bombard them with lights all the time. You can bring that back down and you can soften things to coincide with the music. So that's a factor. From a sequencing perspective, let me tell you how to get started with sequencing. If you don't know where to start with your most constrained prop. Now, what do I mean by constrained? Well, think about a matrix. What limitations do you have on a matrix on what you can put on there? Well, you can put video, you can put effects, you can, literally there's no limit to what you can put on a matrix. So in my mind, that's not very constrained. I like to start with arches. The reason why is because you can use the arches to catch the beat, and it's almost in a way mechanical. You can start there. You can vary up what you use on the arches, but it gives you an opportunity to get past that sequencer block, that writer's block. You're getting something on paper. You're getting something on the sequence. And because the arches are a constrained prop, yes, you can put video on arches, but most of the time you wouldn't. Most of the time it's going to be something linear because it's a linear prop. Now you can get into some really advanced arches, triple arches, and some of the ones that have 6 and 7 arches built in, but they're still arches. You can still do that. So that's my go-to is arches. Yours can be something completely different, but what it does is it lets you get past that sequencer block, and it gives you something to build on, gives you a foundation where you can do something based on what you've got going on with the arches themselves. All right, now the effect selection. We'll talk a little bit about the effects. Okay, so in a way, the effects that you put on a prop are kind of a function of the prop itself. As I mentioned, can you put video on a single strand? You absolutely can. But a lot of times, the prop is going to dictate what you put on it to get the best result, what you want. The music can determine what effects you use. All of it, of course, is determined by you. And then how do you lay in the effects? I get this question a lot of times. Do you do it section by section or one prop for the entire song? Well, I kind of do a mix. Like I said, if I know I've got to sequence this and I really don't have a clear vision, remember I have no creative vision, I'm going to drop back to the mechanical aspect of it, and I will do arches all the way through. Now, I'm not saying that I won't change them as I go through, but I will do that all the way through because that's my starting point. And then I will go back and start sequencing section by section. So I kind of take a mixed approach. The approach that you need to take is the one that works for you. But there are two ways to do it, and just be aware of that. Okay, now let's talk a little about the effects. I'll just show you real quickly because we are limited on time. Like I said, not going to be able to teach you to sequence in the time that we have. But let me get over here, new share. We're going to go back to xLights. Going to share that. Okay, here we are. Now, a couple of things. I use, when you're first starting out, like I said, I'll drop in this prop here. Let me get it back over to my happy number, 32. I'll drop in those arches, and now I'll show you something that's really neat. If you drop it in from here, okay, you can drop it from there. The other place that you can drop it from is over here. A lot of people don't know this, but you can take this and you can drop it in. The reason why that's important, let me show you. Okay, let's say I drop over here and I put on the snowflakes. I'm going to put in that right there. Okay, set it up 6. Make it thick. And 3D. Okay, so now I've got it, and I'm going to change it to per model default since it's a group. So I've got that going. Now if I come back over here and I drop in the single strand, okay, look what happened over here. It's back to 1 chase. The chase size is 10. The cycles are 1. So I lost what I had before. But if I will come over here and highlight that and then come back, okay, now you'll see that I picked up the parameters of what was there before. We've got the chase size of 41, the cycles of 32. Again, that's how you don't have to go back in and copy effects. You just drag it from here and put it wherever you want it. Now, dialogues. Let me dock this. I'm going to move it over here. I'm going to put it there. I want to point you to a really good resource. Again, the manual. Let me share with you what this kind of looks like. Okay, this is our manual. And if you will go into the effects, and it will list the effects out here on the left-hand side. And again, sometimes they're not all 100% there, but the vast majority of them are. And what you can go in and you can go in and it will show you what the parameters are, and it will tell you what each one of those things does. Okay, so what I recommend you do is set up the manual as a bookmark and have it ready to go anytime that you are sequencing. Now, unfortunately, because of time constraints, we're going to have to switch gears. But let me get to the point where we can get to questions. All right, so the effect dialogues, the way that you're going to learn those dialogues is just by doing it lots of times. Transitions and layerings, that's something I've got set for the intermediate class. When you get done with everything, you got to ask yourself, wouldn't it be cool if? In other words, after you look at your completed sequence, then you can come back and say, well, maybe I can do this a little different, something like this to make yourself a little happier. Sometimes you may have nailed it the first round through. All right, so here's your new methodology. You're going to prep your work areas, song selection palette, put in the timing tracks, determine your sequencing, and then when you get done, you're going to polish it. And that's my wouldn't it be cool if. All right, so I want to allow some time for questions if you have it. I haven't been following along with the chat because I've been trying to get through everything for everybody. But if we can, I'd like to open things up for questions. Okay, got Jeff Shoemaker. Okay. All right. Anybody else got any questions? If we could allow anybody to jump in now, if we can allow their audio to come through.
Okay, sorry, I wasn't able to unmute. That Queen Mary plugin. Tell me, how do I use that? How can I see it, or how do I know that it's installed? I installed it just now, but I don't see any effects. I don't see what it did.
Okay. Did you restart your xLights?
I did. Okay. Yes.
And you're not getting it there, right?
Well, I don't know how to know that it's there.
Okay. All right. First off, I will tell you it's not available in an animation. So you're going to have to create a musical sequence.
Okay.
And when you create a musical sequence over on the left-hand side.
Okay.
Let me show you here.
I do have a musical sequence. I mean, I do have one loaded here.
Okay. What you'll do is you go over to the right. You see where mine has the teal, the red, and the blue timing marks. You right click there on your mouse and you will add a timing track.
Okay.
And you'll see there the new timing. It starts with an empty. If you will click on that, it should drop down and you should have your Queen Mary Vamp plugins available. Now, sometimes they do not automatically install. And in those instances, what you'll have to do is install the location in the path. And the way that you'll do that is by actually going into your task, your taskbar. Hang on. You go into your task manager, and on startup, you'll have to actually add it into the path. It's a little more complicated to do it, but if it doesn't install, there are instructions out there how to just put that path where they're installed so that xLights will see it.
So, okay, on my right click there, I mean, is there something labeled as Queen Mary?
No, it because if you don't have the Queen Mary, let me show you. All right, if I go over here to, if I go over and let me just start an automation. I'm gonna discard. Okay, I'm gonna create an animation. Quick start. Okay, now if I go over here and add a timing track and I hit that pull down, look how there's only a few options. Whereas if the Queen Mary's installed, it'll drop down all over most of your screen. So that's the difference. If it's not installed properly, you'll get exactly what you see when you do the animation.
I got you. Yeah, I've got about probably 20 things there now. Bar and beat track, bars, beat count.
Yep, you got it.
Key detector, tone or tonic pitch. Okay.
Yeah. Each of them does some different things. I showed you the two that I use the most.
Is there? You said there's a instruction manual on kind of like what you showed of the xLights help for the effects. Is there one for each one of those? That kind of describes each.
Not on xlights.org. In other words, you'll just have to Google it.
Okay. All right. Right on. Thank you.
Yeah, there's a couple of jam sessions if you look on YouTube for xLights gems that has that listed. So I see, Michael, you have a hand up. I think most of the questions were answered in chat. We're coming up almost on time, so we want to be mindful of that. There is a back-to-back session on this that Michael's going to do on beginner level sequences. So hope maybe most of you guys will stick around. If so, please remember to visit the VCS website and show our vendors or supporters some love and use the discount codes provided in there. And with that, I will stop the recording for this session and get ready for the next one.
Thank you. The other
Thank
thing
you.
I will tell you, anybody have any more questions, just message me on Facebook or through our website. You can send me a message and I'll get it answered for you.